Welcome! Welcome! Tusen Talk, thank you for joining us. So I want you all to pull up next to the fire, because remember, in our time period, back in the time of the Vikings, roughly the 700s to about 1066, that 300-year period, when there was plague outside, you were lucky if you had a storyteller. You would call him next to the fire if he wasn't, and he would entertain and tell stories. And you were like, ha ha, we've got a storyteller, ha ha. Storytelling! Storytelling time! Storytelling time! Come and listen to my stories, come and listen to my rhymes. I will tell of the ancient days of our forefathers' time. Storytelling time. Storytelling time. Lords and ladies, jelly beans and crocodiles, come on in and have a seat for a while. Just imagine you're sitting under the shade. Your work is done. Come now and play. My name is True Thomas the Storyteller, and I'd like to share a couple of things with you. Now, I know there's still some people tuning in. First of all, I hope you all have your favorite beverage, a hornful of mead or ale or milk. It does a body good. And hang on a second. The key to success in life, lubrication. Hang on just a second. Now, I'm sorry. And I forgot the most important part. Skull! By the way, skull, I'll touch on that in just a second. Skull. Where were we? Are you ready for a story? Everybody say yay!
Yay!
I hope you're having fun. And remember, you can hit the icon and you can also send notes, and we'll be glad to interact if we can. Here we go with our story. Thor was waking up. He was waking up, and he reached out for that one thing that he loved most in the universe. Was it his beautiful golden-haired wife, Sif? No. Was it his two children, Magni and Modi? No. It was his hammer. He reached for Mjolnir, but it wasn't there. Well, he sometimes left it in other places, and so he reached under the bed and looked around under there, nothing but some ferocious dust bunnies. But there was nothing under there. Well, he got up and went into the bathroom and looked for the hammer there, in which, by the way, if Thor was ever really being mean to you, he would just, put the hammer on top of a toilet and then nobody could move it. And, oh, that's so funny, Thor. But anyhow, it wasn't in there. Sometimes, he would leave it in the guacamole dip, in the great mead hall, and everybody thought that was so funny, especially the cleaning staff, but he kind of looked through there and it wasn't there. Well, it's not like the hammer went places, because once he set it down, there it stayed. And so he had himself his first horn of mead and started wandering around the place, and he could not find his hammer. And sure enough, about an hour later, a young person came running up and said, Lord Thor, almighty powerful thunderer, we could use your help up on the wall. Now, don't read into this, but they had a great big wall surrounding Asgard that they used to keep back the smaller giants, the 20-footers and down, the trolls with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heads. And the gods would man that wall and deal with the various creatures attacking. But for some reason, it was going crazy. There were all these creatures attacking Asgard. And so Uller was up there with his bow. That only counts as one. And then, Frey was there with his sun sword. Who's your daddy? And so they were having a rough time keeping all the creatures back. Giants of all sizes, shapes, and everything were coming. And the young man told Thor this and said, if you could kind of come up there and bring your hammer and kind of bring the heat down a little bit, a little that whole thunder and lightning thing. And Thor said, I can't find it. I'm sorry? I can't find my hammer. What? Did you check your bed? Yes, I checked my bed. Did you check under your bed? I checked under my bed. Did you check the bathroom? Because, you sometimes do the... I checked the bathroom. What about the meat hall? I checked the meat hall. Ooh, this is bad. I better let the people back at the wall know. Yeah, I suppose. Go ahead. And with that, the young man flew off. And away he went. And they kept looking for the hammer. Sif and his children, everybody was looking for the hammer. Nobody could find the hammer. Well, everybody who wasn't fighting on the wall, they all gathered to the moot hall and they all started talking. And this is the part where you all get to help. I'm going to point to you and you're going to say, walla, walla, walla. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Walla, walla, walla.
All right, now say rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb.
Rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb.
Congratulations, you're all now members of the Screen Extras Guild. Don't forget to pay. And so all the people were saying walla, walla, walla.
Walla, walla, walla.
And rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb.
Rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb.
And they were having a real problem because without that hammer, Asgard was likely to fall. Thor was there and everybody was talking, and finally somebody said, "Where's Loki?" Because if you look on the whole list of Viking problems and how to figure out who did what, if you check the flow chart, it's usually the number one is, did Loki do it? Well, they didn't know where Loki was, but Thor usually could find him and did find him and grabbed him and dragged him back to the moot hall and said, "What have you done with my hammer?" And Loki said, "Why do you always accuse me of these things?" "Excuse me? Not this guy." "Loki, yes. Did you take my hammer?" For once, this time, it's not me. Yep, it's not me. I've been trying to steal that hammer and move it. Nobody can move that stupid hammer, Thor. "Well, my hammer is missing. What do you want me to do about it?" And Bragi looked up and said, "Loki, you're on a first-name basis with all the scum and villainy in the universe. If you could find it in your heart of hearts to just wander around and make a few inquiries, we'd really appreciate it." "Oh, right. So, Loki, you stole the hair off my wife. Oh, we hate you for that. Oh, Loki, your children, the Jorgenmonder, the one that circles the world, Fenrir, the one who's going to eat us all at the end of time, Hell down in Niflheim, with a face, one half beautiful, the other half all disgusting and full of maggots and everything. Oh, we hate you, Loki, we hate you." But now it's, "Oh, Loki, could you make a few inquiries?" Yeah, I could do that. So, I'm going to need Freya's feathered cloak. Now, in case you didn't know this, not only did she have that amazing necklace, Brisingamen, but she also had a falcon feathered cloak, which allowed her to turn into a falcon or fly anywhere in the 9 realms that she wanted to. And Loki desired that cloak badly. And he said, "I'm going to have to borrow that cloak if you want this done quick." And she went, "I suppose for the good of us all, 1 feather damaged, and you'll answer to me, 'Yes, yes.'" And he put it on. "I'll make this look good. Ciao, babies." And he turned into a falcon and flew. He flew through Gimli, the high heavens. He flew through Niflheim. Hey, baby. He flew through Muspelheim, the land of fire, where Surtur waited. He flew through all the realms. Svartalfheim. Hey. He flew and he flew through Midgard. That's where we are. Everybody say hi. Hi, Loki. He flew as a falcon till finally he came to Jotunheim. And believe it or not, Loki had no problem with the cold, and there's a reason for that. He flew through Jotunheim, and as he was flying around, what did he see but the biggest ice giant he had seen in a long time, sitting on the side of a glacier, playing with his cows. He flew closer, and there was the ice giant playing with his cows. Burn-de burr, da mushki moo, da mushki moo, ding, ding, ding. I think this one's frozen. Loki landed next to him. La! Hey, big guy. Hello, Loki. Laufey-san. Are you looking for something? That never gets old. Yeah, big guy. Why are you sitting out on the side of a glacier just playing with your frozen bovines there? Oh, I don't know. Birdie birdie mooshky moo. You know, if you squeeze them, you get Haagen-Dazs. He set them down. He said, are you looking for something? Yes, I got it the first time. If I was looking for something, what would you have that would interest me? Oh, I don't know. If I had a hammer, do-do-do, mushky moo, moo, moo. If you had a hammer, what a coinkydink. I just happened to be looking for, oh, I don't know, artifact of rare power? Well, yes, and I think I know where that hammer is, and I could get it back to you, but I want something in return. And Loki smiled, because this is something he knew something about, dealing with things. And he said, and what would you want, big guy? And the great giant, who looked down, he said, well, my name is Thrym, and what I want to do is marry the beautiful Freya. He looked up and said, why is it that you guys all have a thing for Freya? She's gorgeous and beautiful, don't get me wrong, but she is pulled around on an iron chariot pulled by giant gray cats, has a necklace that shoots death, has a hall of 10,000 angry warriors. Didn't you get the memo? Oh, what can I say? I'm a romantic. Right. You want to marry Freya. All right. And if I get you Freya, you're going to give us the hammer back. Yeah, sure, you betcha. All right, then. I'll see you in just a little bit. And he turned back into a falcon. And he flew all the way back into the moot hall in Asgard. And turned back into Loki, and he said, hey, guys. And all the people were saying, walla, walla, walla.
Walla, 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 walla.
Rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb.
Rhubarb.
Thus getting more residuals for the Screen Extras Guild. And they said, Loki! Everybody say Loki.
Loki!
Said, hi, guys. And they said, did you find the hammer? And he said, I think I know who has it. And they said, great! Let's go get it. And he said, well, a little problem there. They said, what? He said, well, it's the biggest ice giant that I've ever seen. I mean, the guy is huge. He's almost as big as Utgard Loki. He's huge. And his name is Thrym. And I'm pretty certain he's got a lot of buddies and pals, and I believe he has your hammer. They said, well, that's great. We'll just send Thor to go deal. Oh, wait, right. That is a problem. Well, that's okay, because he's willing to make a deal. And they all said, what? Everybody say what?
What?
He said, nothing big. He just wants to marry the beautiful Freya. At which point Freya looked and said, nuh-uh. Not gonna happen. And with that, she stood up and she said, listen, I'm sorry. Every time one of these things happens, all the giants, for some weird reason, have a thing for me. I'm not doing it. If you need that hammer back, you marry a giant. I'm not doing it. And with that, she turned and she walked away, and she was as beautiful walking away as she had been coming into the room. And all the gods went, oh no. Can I have an oh no?
Oh no.
And they were all grumbling, blah, 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 blah. At which point Loki started to laugh. At which time the god said, hey, Loki, you're kind of creeping us out. What's so funny? And Loki said, you know, it just occurs to me, that giant has probably never seen Freya. He has no idea what she looks like. We could put Thor in a wedding dress, and he wouldn't know the difference. And all the gods looked at each other and went, can I have some laughter, please? At which point, Thor stood up and said, no, not going to happen. No, no, no. Boom, 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 boom. And the big man stormed out of the hall. Loki smiled. He said, right. Kvasir, god of mead, go see what you can do. Bragi, go whisper those sweet words in his ears. And so Bragi and Kvasir, they went out there and had a little chat with Thor. About a half hour later, Thor comes in and he is lit. Woo! Let's do this! Woo-hoo-hoo! At which point he stood up, and it just so happens there was a Laurel in costuming, the goddess of costuming there, and she got out her magic needle and her magic scissors. Never use them to cut paper, ever. And she got out her magic needle and her magic scissors and went, ta-da! And there was a gorgeous Viking wedding dress, apron, jewelry, and everything. And Loki looked and he said, "That's gorgeous, but what about his hands?" She said, "Please, darling." And with that, she put beautiful gloves to cover his big hairy knuckles. He said, "Right, what about the whole giant beard and everything?" She said, "This is not my first rodeo." And with that, she took that giant beard and stuffed it in, and Thor the bride had huge tracts of land. And with that, he said, "What about his big bushy eyebrows and his burning red eyes?" She said, "Wedding veil." And with that, they put a wedding veil on him, a little crown of flowers, all plated and everything. And all the people in the room went, "Aww." At which point Loki held up a mirror and said, "What do you think, big guy?" Thor looked at it and went, "I feel pretty. I feel pretty. I feel pretty as pretty can be." And with that, he said, "Good enough for me. Don't worry, I already have a handmaid's outfit. Don't judge. I am now Loki the handmaid." And with that, he said, "Hang on, big guy, here we go." He reached over and he touched the bride on the top of her big shaggy head and went, whoop. She turned into an acorn. He turned into a falcon. And he flew back to Jotunheim, the land of fire, the land of frost and cold and stone. They flew and they flew and they flew until finally he saw the great hall, and he flew into it. And there were all the giants parting. Stone giants on one side, frost giants on the other, storm giants over there, and they were all singing and hollering and whooping. Can I have some singing and hollering and whooping, please? They were having a great time. There were trolls of every size, shape, and dimension. Little ones, big ones, ones with 6 heads. La, 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 la. Great for a choir. At which point, they were all partying and everything, and the falcon flew in, and the handmaid Loki turned and looked at the room and said, "Hello, giants and various immensities. I have brought the beautiful bride, the gorgeous Freya." Everybody have a toast. Everybody say skull.
Skull.
And they did. They all said skull. And at which point, the handmaid Loki went, dropped the acorn, and boom! There was the bride Thor in the beautiful veil and everything, but she was immense, very, very wide. At which point the giants all looked and went, "Aw, can everybody give me an aw? Aw." And Thrym the giant looked and he said, "She's bigger than I expected." "Oh yes," said Loki. Look at those big childbirthing hips. She will give you many, many big, strong children." And Thrym went, "Okay, we get married Norwegian style here." With that, he spat in his hand and held out his hand. And Loki went, "Please." The handmaiden slapped his hand away. "This is an Asgardian goddess. She needs to have a little bit more ceremony, a little bit more party, a little bit more je ne sais quoi." The giant said, "I'm sorry, I do not." "Feasting, party. Oh, feasting we can do. Yeah, sure, you betcha." And he motioned with his hands, and out came an immense amount of food. Everything you could possibly imagine. There was lefse, the good stuff. There was lingonberries. There was also lutefisk. There was sides of beef and salmon and everything. And the blushing bride made her way over to the table, and she started to eat. She was taking whole sides of beef and sticking them under the wedding veil and going, and spitting out bones and chasing the dragons away under the table. She was taking whole hogsheads of mead and drinking them. And Thrym looked down and he said, my blushing bride has quite an appetite." At which point Loki smiled and he said, well, you do know, once she was found out she was going to marry the great and powerful Thrym, she's been starving herself to fit into that wedding dress. And the giant went, "Aw," and all the other giants went, "Aw." Everybody give me an aw.
Aww.
Thank you very much. And Loki could tell that this line of questioning was going to end up going south in a hurry. But before he could even react, Thrym leaned over and thought because he was in his cups too, he decided he was going to sneak a kiss from his blushing bride. So he went over there and tried to sneak a kiss, and the blushing bride looked back and, well, Thrym saw underneath the wedding veil 2 eyes that burned like red-hot embers, because we all know how Thor feels about giants. And he went, handmaid, why do my blushing bride's eyes burn like 2 red-hot embers? Oh, said the handmaid Loki, she's been crying herself to sleep every night thinking about how wonderful it will be to be married to such a massive and powerful giant as you. And all the giants went, "Aww."
Aww.
Thank you. And handmaid Loki said, right, we got to get this on the road. He said, all right, big fella, if I could have you over here. Goom, 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 goom. Oh, good. And then if I could get the blushing bride over here. If I could get the blushing bride. You, over here. Thor in the wedding dress came over and stood next to the giant. And he said, right, so let's go ahead and have the ceremony. Now, to make certain that we have lots and lots of issue, we need something magical. We need a powerful magical artifact to bless this. And the big giant looked down and said, you mean like a hammer? Loki smiled and said, absolutely. With that, the giant clapped his hands, and into the hall, 30 storm giants on one side, 30 frost giants on the other side, with the logging chains that did not hold Fenrir, they started dragging Oreos and milk, Oreos and milk, across the stone floor, digging a 3-foot trench, sparks and smoke flying. They dragged the hammer, Mjolnir, all of those giants, the chains becoming red hot until finally it was right before the blushing bride. Well done, sir, said Loki, in handmaid's outfit. All right. Well, big fella, if I could just have you reach down here, just take that big pinky here and just touch the hammer. And if I could have the blushing bride, that's you, and if I could have the blushing bride just reach down and put your hand on the handle. Very good. Just keep that right there. I'm going to step outside for just a second and think of the right words for this occasion. And with that, the handmaid Loki turned around with a swirl, looked at the beautiful wedding couple, and looked at the bride and said, you do what you do best. And with that, headed out the door. All the giants were looking at this as the beautiful blushing bride reached down and picked up the hammer as light as a feather. And then the hammer started to spin. Lightning started to follow the hammer. Around the hall, there was a roar of thunder. Everybody help me with the thunder and lightning. There was a crash of lightning, and all of a sudden, ping! Out of the wedding dress came a big red beard full of electricity. And Thor reached back and pulled the wedding veil back and laughed maniacally. And that hammer, it started to fly. Now, to simulate this as would be proper, I'm going to point to you and you're going to make the sound of exploding giants. All right, on the count of 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Boom!
And that must have been a troll. Anyway, there was boom, smash, crash, flash, bash. Meanwhile, outside doing her nails, the handmaid Loki was going as bits of giant and ichor and tables and trays were flying out. flashes of thunder and lightning. After a few minutes, Thor came out, and his wedding dress was all covered with gore, and it was on fire, and Thor's hair was standing on end, and he was swinging the hammer going, "Best wedding ever!" "I want to go to another wedding, Loki." And Loki smiled and said, "I'm sorry, big fella. I know you're having a good time, but I don't have any other weddings to bring you to." "Oh, well, I go. There's still some meat." He said, Wait. But I do have some place to bring you where there are lots of giants." "Giants? Do I get to kill more giants?" "Yes, you do." "All right, hang on." And with that, he turned back into Loki, and he put the falcon cloak on and turned back into a falcon. And this time, he did not turn Thor into an acorn. Instead, that little birdie got the back of Thor's neck and started to lift. Hardest working falcon in mythology, I just got to say. He started to fly, and he flew all the way from Jotunheim back to Asgard. And what did the gods who were on the wall fighting and exhausted turn up to see? But Thor, flying toward the wall in a wedding dress, flaming. They heard the music. Vroom, vroom, vroom. At which point Thor hit the wall and turned, and there were thousands of giants of all different sizes, shapes, stone giants, fire giants, frost giants, cloud giants, you name it, all sorts of giants attacking the wall. At which point Thor, he played his favorite game in the universe, Whack-A-Giant. And to simulate that, I'm going to point to you, and you're going to make the sound of exploding giants. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Boom!
And.
Splat!
Okay. And.
Splat!
And.
Roar!
And.
Splat!
And. And. And.
Boom!
And. Yes. Thank you to my special effects department. Boom! Smash! Crash! And all the giants and trolls, the ones that were left, did what they always do in this situation. They turned and they said those immortal words, "Run away! Run away! Run away!" And they all ran back to their various myths, legends, and folktales. Thor was standing on the wall with what was left of his smoking, ragged wedding dress. And he called Mjolnir back, and it was glowing red hot, electricity crackling around it. And he pointed it to all the gods and warriors there, and he said, "No one is going to talk about this to anyone. Got it?" And all the people went, "Uh-huh." Now, I'm not saying that any of the gods and demigods who were on that wall were talking, but I have to tell you, I'm pretty certain some of the human servants were, because the story got down to Earth, where we are, in Midgard, and eventually it traveled through oral tradition for hundreds of years until it was written in a piece of literature called the Prose Edda by Snorri Sturluson, and that, I believe, dates back to about the 12th century. And so you have just heard a traditional story called The Lay of Thrym, as written by him, as interpreted by me, just like your ancestors did in their mead halls hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The Lay of Thrym. I hope you enjoyed that story. And before we go, I have a couple of things I just want to give a couple of shout outs real quick, if I could. If you're interested in actual Norse mythology, if you want to teach share your kids with those wonderful myths and legends, two resources I absolutely recommend. Neil Gaiman, the master, his Norse mythology and his audio tapes are amazing and wonderful. And then probably the book almost pretty much responsible for me to becoming a storyteller is the Storyteller book of Norse myths. This and the Greek one are amazing. I fell in love with them as a kid and kind of kicked me on this gig. And then a couple other people I want to give a shout out. If you're interested in things Norse, and for instance, if you would like to learn how to speak the language of the Old Norse, check out Dr. Jackson Crawford. His website on YouTube, the Old Norse channel. He's a University of Colorado professor and probably one of the coolest people on the planet. I have a total storyteller crush on him. And then the Viking answer lady, Christy Ward Ganora. If you have questions, especially about costuming and the life and times of the Vikings, check out the Viking answer lady.
And thank you very much for listening to Traditional Stories and for supporting your traditional storytellers. Thank you.